In today's episode of Burnout Banter, we'll delve into the roller coaster ride that is the final stretch of the year. As the days grow shorter, our schedules often grow longer, and the pressure to juggle work, holiday preparations, and personal commitments can become overwhelming. We will explore the unique challenges of the year-end hustle, dive deep into why those challenges cause us to burn out, share some personal stories, and offer practical tips to help you not only survive, but thrive during this demanding season. Whether you're an overachiever, a procrastinator, or somewhere in between, today's episode will be your guide to understanding why the end of the year can lead to burnout and how to find alignment in your life in the midst of holiday chaos. Hey everybody, my name is Rochelle.
And I'm Jeff.
And this is Burnout Banter. Before we jump into today's episode, remember to subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Amazon, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen so that you can stay up to date with the latest banter.
So Rochelle and I were talking a little while ago, and she was mentioning how at the beginning of this year, she was just wiped out for all of January. And so we thought that as we approach the end of the year, this would be a good topic to talk about, kind of some of the extra stress and burnout that the holiday season and end of year creates in our life. So you want to start us off and tell us a little bit about what led to that, Rochelle?
Sure, I will share my cautionary tale for all of my proposal and non-proposal friends out there. So last year, my consulting business was kind of starting to severely ramp up. So I was handling 10 to 15 proposals at once for, most of the summer and into the fall. And of course, Q4 is always the worst.
It is.
So workload was awful. And
it's
then on top of that,
but that's a good thing, right? From a business perspective, but not from a Rochelle perspective, maybe.
It is. Business Rochelle was very happy and very relieved for the upcoming holiday bills, especially to be able to pay those. Personal Rochelle was exhausted and tired. And there was a period in October, I think I went to ACL. I came back. And having given myself 3 days off, or maybe not, because music festivals aren't really time off. I had 5 days where I just kind of sat on the couch and ate soup and couldn't really function. And then I just had to rally and had to get back into it. So I was I knew I was burnt out, but I just kept pushing forward. And then everything kind of snowballs, at least here in my corner of the world, from Halloween on. So we had a baby shower that I had to throw. Thanksgiving came up, Halloween came up, not in that order, obviously. And then Christmas shows up, and my family Christmas is our holiday. I have been told by outsiders when I was living with friends that they have never seen a family go as hard at Christmas as mine does. We get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, we powwow at my grandma's house, we all group up. And we don't leave my grandma's house until after midnight. Then we all disperse back to our homes, and then we do it again the next day, over and over and over again. We are just constantly around each other for a week-ish straight, cooking, eating, being grumpy, angry, fun Italians, or yelling at each other all the time. It's a lot of fun. It is a lot of emotional investment. It is a lot of people time for my introverted self that doesn't get to recharge.
That's what I was going to say. Also self-proclaimed introvert. That sounds like a lot.
Oh, it's you can't say no to family, right?
Well, I think that's part of the problem, right?
We're going to talk about that. I felt like I couldn't say no to family. On top of all of this, I was dog sitting for a friend's mom. So I was having to leave twice a day to go deal with, I fondly nicknamed them the Nightmare Twins. They're adorable. They're real bad off leash or on leash. And I got sick, horribly, horribly sick. I was running a terrible fever. I thought I had COVID. I didn't. I just got some really nasty flu bug. So I was sick. I had family commitments. I had holiday commitments. I had work commitments, and personal Rochelle collapsed. So I spent the first 2.5-ish weeks of January, barely functional. Even making soup was a problem. I think I door dashed soup from every restaurant in town like 2 or 3 times a day. It was terrible. There went all of like my bills. All of the money that I had made just went to recovering for those 2.5 weeks. And then again, I had to rally and figure it out because I had more proposals in January, but I couldn't do anything. I was just a sad pile of blankets on the couch eating soup and staring at the TV. And I couldn't tell you if I was even watching the TV because I didn't have the brain cells for it. So it made me look at other types of burnout because I knew that I was already work burnt out, but it felt like there was extra pressure happening. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. And this like year-end pressures that we put on ourselves and that society puts on us, and how that can kind of compound, especially if you're already feeling the burnout at work. And I really want us all to protect ourselves from that. So,
well, what's interesting in talking to you, right, is that you, in some ways, have reached a similar point this October, but you've changed some things so that you hopefully don't get to that point.
Yes, I think October is just my like signal that is about as far as my body can go without like breaking under the pressure. And I don't know if it's because I did go on vacation and I took a full stop week off, didn't touch my phone for the first time in 4 years. That when I came back from that, was like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to feel like. That much energy, that like excited about life. So yeah, I hit October, and again, I'm not quite in the couch and soup phase, but I am in the I need to say no to things phase. And so I've severely dropped my workload back about probably 25% of what I normally handle. That way I can protect myself because I know November and December are going to be nuts, and I got to brace for holiday prep and family and all of the coordination that comes with all of that. So I learned.
We think that we can't, draw things back that 25%, but have you noticed any negative blowback from doing that, or?
Nobody has been angry at me. I've been very upfront about people. Like if I take this on, you're not going to get the same level of Rochelle that you expect. And I apologize for that, but that's just, I'm not functional. I also have been very upfront about, I'm going to pass this off to a contractor and I'm going to be very hands off. And I'm usually very hands on when I work with a contractor. Like you can see me doing all of my QA checks. I'm always right there. And the things that I've passed off, I'm like, nope, you're in good hands. I can't handle it. And it's not that I don't trust them. It's just, it's my brand. And when I like to be involved, I do like proposals. I like to see everything come together, but I've just been super honest, and nobody has, not taken me up on proposal help because I can't do it personally. So it was scary, but it feels good. Feels good.
Yeah. So you hit on holidays and kind of the preparations that go into that. You hit on the family dynamic. We're interacting with our family probably a lot more than we would typically throughout the rest of the year at this point of time.
Yeah. And there's like the cultural phenomenon of the Thanksgiving dinner arguments, right? That like become memes and stuff. I didn't even have that. My family is very wonderful and we all get along very well. So for those people who deal with more dysfunctional family dynamics, that's like an added stress that I just want to acknowledge for those people. It happens, it's okay, and we can prepare for it.
I wouldn't go so far with mine as to call it dysfunctional, but we definitely don't see eye to eye on what we should be doing on a holiday for both Thanksgiving and Christmas. And, I grew up where we would, open presents at home on Christmas and then leave the house for the entire day. You wouldn't even get to play with anything that you got. And then you wouldn't get home until late at night. And so, I've kind of gone the exact opposite way of that, of I don't really want to do that. I just want to stay home, maybe go to a movie, get to hang out and play with things that the kids got and stuff like that. And, but that has taken 10 plus, 15 plus years of I'm using air quotes, fighting to buck the norm or the trend that my parents wish to uphold as we go through the holidays. So
tradition is hard to combat, and I've been on both sides of that. Like, not fighting, but strongly recommending family follow traditions, and also saying, why? Why must we follow that particular tradition if it's going to stress all of us out? Can we just not? So I get both sides of it, and my brain just works that way, where I really stick to nostalgic things. So tradition, or if we've done a certain thing certain ways for 30 years, I just naturally want to like run to the comfort of doing it that way. So it's tough. It's so hard to say no to the way we've always done things.
Well, and I think especially for us, right, when you added kids to the mix, now we want to have our own traditions, right? Like they had their own traditions with us. We want to have our own with our kids. And so that creates friction there because nobody's willing to give up on what they want.
Family tensions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Some other, work deadlines. I never understand why we push so hard to issue everything before Christmas, because nothing happens with it until probably the middle of January, because by the time everybody comes back, they need a week or two to get into things. But there is the 2 weeks leading up to Christmas are usually nuts when it comes to proposal deadlines, project deadlines, and it creates a real mess leading up to time off.
I don't know if you see it on your side, the technical side, but there's a brace yourselves, proposal managers, something that circulates on LinkedIn every year. For the first awful deadline usually comes on the Friday after Thanksgiving. Is usually there's some sort of proposal deadline there. And then there's either one, the 23rd.
The actual day after Thanksgiving?
Actual day after Thanksgiving, like turn your proposals in today. Often hard copy, even though it is the year 2020 something, right? This has happened for the last 10 years of my career. Hard copies due on Black Friday. I'm like, okay. There's also for whatever reason, the 23rd through the 26th seem to still be fair game of December. Even though Christmas and Christmas Eve are smack dab in the middle of those, I have seen Christmas deadlines. And I understand maybe you or that organization don't see Christmas as a holiday. That's fine. But can we not just acknowledge that other people do? I feel this way for all major holidays. I am not Jewish. I acknowledge that there are major Jewish holidays that we schedule things over. And I think that's ridiculous. There are other religions that have major holidays. And I think we should just universally leave the week around those holidays alone. I don't know why we have to pack deadlines in there. I agree with you. Nobody's going to look at things. Nobody's going to touch things until way after, second week of January at minimum. There's no way. Rant over. Anyway.
Yeah, and then that falls into trying to balance work and potential time off, right? Because whether the kids, and another thing that factors into that, right, is now your kids are off.
Right.
Mine are off the whole week of Thanksgiving. They're also off 2 weeks around Christmas. So, you've got to factor that into, potentially somebody taking care of them. Not that mine need to be taken care of anymore, but
But some people's do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even without that, coordinating adult schedules. We don't really have any kids of an age where we need to schedule around them. Nobody's in school, but we're all adults and we all work different jobs in totally different realms. So yeah, coordinating time off and how we're all going to come together from across the country is really stressful.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you add travel to the mix, right? Usually weather's not great. Travel can be kind of a mess at that time of year.
Expensive.
We just had this interaction with my wife's parents because they wanted us to come visit for Thanksgiving, and we've been pretty adamant for a while that wasn't something we were going to do. And they were like, "No, we'd really like you to." So we couldn't go until Wednesday night. And then we had to come back on Saturday because of my wife's work schedule. And it would have cost $3,600.
Oh my gosh.
Just plane tickets.
Oh my gosh. That's nuts. I mean, I get wanting to see family, but
they're actually coming here, but it was right. That whole conversation about, well, why can't you do this? Creates stress.
Money is very stressful. Spending money is very stressful.
Yeah.
On travel or things like gifts. Gifts are stressful.
Yeah, and then I think the other thing that happens this time of year, right, is we do get a bit reflective. We look back, and
yes,
we recall our grand visions of what this year was going to bring, and what our goals were in January, and whether we've achieved some and not achieved others, and what's the new year going to hold for us. And so I think that can create a lot of stress too.
Mm-hmm. Those expectations versus reality, the January New Year's resolutions versus the I'm grateful for having just survived.
Right.
By the time you get to November, that's kind of where I am. And I think a lot of my proposal pros too, in January, we're like, yeah, this is the year that I'm going to get organized or get everybody on board with whatever this process or system is. And by November, we're just like, I'm just thankful that I have a bar of chocolate left. Thank you. So,
but I can create hopelessness too, right? Because what's going to make next year different than
exactly
this past year? Yeah. Or the past couple of years, or however long we've been doing this.
Very long time.
Yeah. So why do you think these things cause us to burn out?
They're all emotional burdens. They're all mental strains. I don't know if we've talked a whole lot about like mental load. I think we dance around it a lot in our banters, but whether that's something whether a task is something you are actively working on, or it's something that you need to work on in the back of your mind, it is taxing. And so when you're not just juggling work, but you have travel and family and gifts and work and extra work tasks like client gifts and all that other stuff dancing around in the back of your head, you've increased your mental load. And I think that is what tips us towards burnout and does it rapidly because we are exponentially increasing our mental load at this time of year.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great reason why. I also think the other thing is we, inevitably we compare ourselves to other people and what other families are doing and, how much this other person can handle and how much can I handle and why can't I handle what everybody else can handle. And, the truth is we don't really know what anybody is handling,
right.
what's going on in their brains. But I think that gets us into a lot of trouble. I know my wife and I talk, like we watch movies and there's this great family get together and everybody's having the funnest time. And maybe Rochelle has that, it sounds like, but I don't know that the rest of us are that lucky all the time. So,
I want to be very clear that my family is more everybody loves Raymond than like White Christmas, but it's still fun. But yeah, you have no idea. And I just explained it. I kind of, added a little dusting of sparkle to it to make it sound more like fun family gathering time and not 18 hours of entrapment with my family. Just kidding. I know my mom listens to the podcast. Love you, Mom. Anyway. But yeah, we have no idea. And we put a sheen on everything. And it's the Pinterest, Instagram effect, whether you're seeing it in the office or on social media, it doesn't really matter. We can't know what's going on behind the words or the pictures that people share with us. There's no way for us to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the new year brings hope and the end of the year brings reflection and, it's supposed to be this magical time and maybe we're feeling magical and maybe we're not. I think it probably depends year by year.
I think it does. And I think that pressure to feel magical is an extra mental load that we take on. I've definitely had a couple of years where I just could not. I felt like the Grinch, even though I love Christmas too, just could not get into the spirit. And I extra hated it because I felt like I should. And I knew that I should be happy. And I just couldn't get there, which just compounded things and made them worse. So that pressure to think or do or feel a certain way about things is additional mental load that we need to be cognizant of and careful about when we're heading into this season, I think.
Yeah. So I guess we've covered the challenges, right, and why they cause burnout. So what can we do about them?
I mean, obviously the first thing is awareness.
Yeah.
You know, make a list of all the things that are going to stress you out coming up and just start preparing for them so that you can take that mental load off. Writing things down. I used to have a creative advertising professor who would just scream at us to write bleep down every class. And it's really stuck with me to write things down because it takes the mental load off, because it is then recorded somewhere. Even if you lose that checklist and you have to rewrite it, at least you've written it down somewhere at some point.
Well, I would say it is fairly important that if you're going to really feel relieved by the exercise of writing things down and getting it out of your mind, doing it in somewhere place that you're potentially not going to lose. I get that we're all not perfect. None of us are perfect and we may lose it, but having a system that you may not lose really helps, because then you don't have to try to, what was on my list in case I lose it?
True. Goal is not to lose it. But if you have to start write something down temporarily, if you dash something off on the back of a receipt in your car on your way home from writing or getting groceries, just put it in a safe place when you get back. But that will reduce the mental load you having to hold on to that thing until you get home, if that makes sense. I know that's an extreme case, but
no, it's really not that extreme. There's actually a great book that talks about it. It's called Getting Things Done. And I'm not going to lie, this guy takes it to the nth degree of having something to write. He has a list everywhere, in the shower, in his car, at the dinner table. So whenever something pops in his mind, it's out.
Wow.
But it's a good book for talking about why it's important to get that stuff out of your head.
Fair enough. Fun little story to boost things up just a little bit. About writing things down. Roald Dahl is said to have pulled over on his ride home from wherever he was one day, and he wrote the word chocolate in the dust on his car, and that was because he got the idea for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory in the middle of his commute. He needed to write it down.
Yeah, so supposedly.
Yeah, literally wrote it on his car. Supposedly, that was what I was told by the professor who screamed at me to write things down. That was his justification for it. So
yeah, I like that, because he probably would have forgot.
Probably, and then we wouldn't have Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah,
or Willy Wonka. So what else can we do, Jeff?
Yeah, so one thing we can do is change our language. So tell me something that you have to do either, in the next couple of weeks, in the next couple of months. What's something you feel like you have to do going into the holidays?
I feel like I have to get more organized. I have to make my menu list. I have to I make a spreadsheet of gifts and costs of gifts for things. I have to figure out where the heck I stored all of the decorations for each of these holidays and pull them out. I have to get up on the ladder and put them up. I have to engage with the holidays, I guess, is what all of that boils down to.
That was a lot. And how do you feel thinking about all that?
That is overwhelming. It is a lot. Saying it out loud really helped me realize how much it is. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that.
And who's saying that you have to do all those things?
In my head, I have to. In my irrational little monkey brain, I have to. But in my human logical brain, I know I don't. I would like to be more organized, and I would like to be on top of switching out my Halloween decorations on November 1st. But in reality, if I leave them up until December 24th, nobody's going to hate me.
That's true. And do you think there are people who get Christmas gifts without having a spreadsheet of all the gifts they're going to get?
Absolutely. I have done it in the past, not used my spreadsheet, and it's been just fine. It's great.
How about menus? Do people make lists of menus, or are there people who don't and they seem to get along just fine?
I'm sure they do. If the menu disappears in my family, though, oof, it's scary. That's a must. I'm sorry. I know what you're trying to do here, but I'm going to die on that hill, the menu hill.
Because what would happen if you lost your menu?
So I'm not the keeper of the menu, but the keeper of the menu in the past has not gotten input. Let me back up real quick. We have a very strange tradition on Christmas Eve where we don't have a main dish. We have like 14 to 20 just side dishes, and that is our dinner. And everybody contributes a couple of those dishes. And so we need to know, as we're coming up to that point, like what we have to buy, what's on the grocery list, who's responsible for bringing what, who's flying in with certain ingredients that we can't get from certain places. And if that list, the menu list, and thus the grocery list disappear on the day of the big cook, chaos ensues.
And what would chaos result in?
And everybody loves Raymond like fight. There's a lot of angry Italian yelling and gesturing. There's a lot of storming off to other rooms, and then everybody eventually comes together at the table and we're all good. But
have you been eating the same 14 things for your whole life, or have they changed?
The core stay, but some of the other ones shift and change and adjust.
Anything that wasn't in the core that has come in that made it into the core or not?
Yeah, there have been a few things that have become new staples. Yeah.
So could, if everybody just brought new things, there could be opportunity for something that you all love going forward, right?
Now I'm really hoping my mom was listening to this episode, because you're speaking to her as the keeper of the menu. I'll check in with her and let you know.
All right, Rochelle's mom.
Agreed. There is opportunity. And that's, kind of how we got here, as most of us grew up and we wanted to be more involved. Instead of taking on an existing dish, we were like, I want to bring something new. And we tried it out and saw if it worked or not.
Yeah. But
you need menu to organize that.
I mean, maybe. Or you could just have 14 random things and it might be fun too.
Jeff, your house must be chaos.
It's not, I promise. I'm just pointing out that it could be. So you don't have to, right? You want the menu to be organized so that things go smoother.
Yes. But as we learned on the last episode, I have trouble with letting go of certain things.
So you want to have a menu for your Christmas meals. You want to get a spreadsheet put together for all your gifts. You want to get out your decorations and figure out where they are so that you can decorate.
Yes, I want all of these things.
But you don't have to.
I don't need all of these things. I don't.
Is there any less pressure around that or not?
I don't think I'm going to be able to come to terms with that in one podcast episode, as I think many of our listeners are not going to be able to come to terms with.
Just think about, right? If we have a choice about what we're doing, then that is more freeing and there's less stress than if we have to do something because.
It's true. And that's how I've been trying to live my October while I'm bracing for the impact of the next 2 months, is I don't have to do anything. There's nothing that absolutely has to get done today that can't get done tomorrow.
I mean,
little baby steps.
In the US, right, it's kind of a given that we all eat turkey on Thanksgiving.
True.
Most of us. We don't. We eat enchiladas because none of us like turkey. But if we
love that.
We have to have turkey, then we would be having turkey and none of us would enjoy it. because that's
true. That's true.
Now, we don't stray from the enchiladas, so you could argue that we're locked into the same thing, but...
I was just going to say, what if I tried to take do you have to have enchiladas, Jeff?
No, because the past 2 years, the neighbor has invited us over for dinner on Thanksgiving, and so we make enchiladas the next day.
It's so free over there.
Pretty wild here in Colorado.
It is very wild over there in Colorado, Jeff. I would not fly down here in New Mexico. I mean, the enchiladas for sure would, but...
Yeah, changing your language can be something that, I think we have a lot of have-tos this time of year, or shoulds or needs tos, and if we can change that to want to or choosing to, then it does relieve some pressure.
Agreed. I choose to enjoy my holiday season instead of stress about it. I think that's where I'm going to start.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing those shoulds and have tos and need tos indicate is that we're locked in expectation of what is supposed to happen in the future, even though we really don't have control over it.
Right.
So being aware of those expectations can help us not fall into the trap of getting stuck in them either and being frustrated or disappointed with how something goes. You talk about travel, right? We're not in control of the weather, and we're certainly not in control of the airlines as much as I would like to be. So that I'm never...
Sorry for everyone who flew Southwest last year.
But we're not. And so some of us go with the flow there a little bit better than others, but I'm not saying you, but I've seen people in the airport who are not going with the flow.
Oh, yeah.
And are very upset with the airport people. And,
it's not their fault either, y'all. Be nice. Yeah. Please be nice.
So if we were trying to control everything in the outcome, right? Much like you're trying to control that everybody's menu items are well orchestrated. If somebody loses the list or somebody messes up one of their menu items, now everybody could be frustrated or disappointed, and the everybody loves Raymond scene has descended upon the Ray household.
I mean, it's going to descend one way or another. I should know that. It happens whether it's the menu or something else. We are an episode every single day with some new drama. So I probably need to keep that in mind and just let it go.
And like with Angie's parents, right? Even though, when they wanted us to go there for Thanksgiving, my initial inclination was like, there's no way we're doing that. But I was like, let's at least look and see.
Right.
And we can
explore the options.
Yeah, then we can figure it out. And, then, okay, that doesn't work for us. How about if you guys come here? Maybe that works for you. Maybe that doesn't. Right. And then we work on a plan that eventually worked itself out. But if we were locked into we have to be there for Thanksgiving, which is kind of where we started.
Right.
And now everybody's disappointed and frustrated. Either we're frustrated that we're having to pay $4,000 to go somewhere for 3 days, or they're frustrated that we're not coming.
Right. And I think to bring that back to our listeners, I guess, who have been listening to us banter about our families. Sorry, y'all.
Luckily, they all have families.
I know they do. I know. Or I hope they do. But that pressure to be on for both your personal life and your work life during this period of time is another round of have tos, need tos, must, shoulds. And for me, that manifests in I have to answer this phone call or I have to answer this email, which I know for a lot of my proposal people means we disappear from the dinner table or whatever activity is happening for an undetermined amount of time to just quickly do this one thing and make sure that everybody stays happy. And I feel like we need to adjust that expectation of ourselves to be the peacekeepers or to take on the burden so that everyone else around us can continue to enjoy the things that they're doing. I think we often sacrifice us, maybe not specifically for others, but we sacrifice our time to the expectations of others.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to be careful about that at this time of the year.
Yeah. Yeah. And, when it comes to work deadlines and things like that, let's just ask, right? Do you really need this here? Or what are you going to do with it? We've talked about that before, right? And maybe they have a good reason why they need it here, and maybe they don't. And, one way or the other, we at least know why we're doing what we're doing.
Right. Yeah. Must you have this proposal turned in on the day after Thanksgiving? Is it absolutely critical? Can we move that deadline? It's okay to ask procurement agencies to move deadlines. They'll say yes or no, but you can ask.
Yeah, the worst answer you're going to hear is no. And then
exactly
spot as you would have been anyways. So, but maybe you get a yes.
Yeah, and then you got a whole extra week to worry about it or not.
Yeah. Yeah, so expectations, just being cognizant of where those are showing up and, just focusing more on what we can control, which is us and how we show up to these holiday things or family things or traveling or whatever it is, can make a big difference this time of year.
Exactly. And not be quite so hard on ourselves. Acknowledge that this is a difficult time of year, no matter what it looks like for you. There is some sort of increased mental and emotional burden for all of us, I think it's fair to say, whether it's something we bring on ourselves or environmental factors stack on top of us. But acknowledge that it's a little tougher and be very graceful or gracious to yourself in what you can and can't do, and acknowledge your limits. Don't beat yourself up over not getting your menus made. It's okay.
If we take that pressure off of ourselves to be perfect all season, maybe we could actually have a little fun.
Exactly.
And then I think another huge thing to do at this time of year, especially as we are more reflective, right? And we had goals coming into the year, is to acknowledge what we have done. Maybe we didn't get everything done that we wanted to. Maybe we're not where we want to be, whatever it is, but we did do stuff during the year, and acknowledging that can really change our perception looking back.
Yeah, the season of gratitude is about to come up. And I always see people posting these really gracious, wonderful, very kind posts about, I'm so glad that I work for these people or with these people, or I have these people in my life, which are amazing. I love those. I like seeing us be gracious of others or grateful for others. I'm really struggling with the variations of grateful. Sorry, y'all. But I very rarely see people acknowledging their personal accomplishments for the year or for, whatever it is. So yeah, you don't have to do it publicly, but give yourself a kudos for surviving. You made it to November. You made it to October. If you're listening to this, that's awesome. And Jeff talks all the time about writing down your wins. What little things did you do? Even if it's not a big win, but you finally sent that email that you've been needing to do, or you did a thing, anything that you did is a win. You finished a task. You didn't put it off. So acknowledge yourself for all of those things.
So do you think that'll help people with the year-end burnout?
I hope so. If not, we're here for you.
We are.
You know where you can find us.
And now it's time for burning questions.
All right, so our burning question today, I don't know that I captured who this was from, but I don't know that that's entirely important. So somebody messaged us who recently had a conversation with a colleague, and they responded, well, if they can't handle the pressure, they should reassess if they're in the right job. And so their question was, if you're in a team where some people happily work 80 hours a week and others set boundaries, how do you manage the process of some people thinking they do more and carry more of the weight? That doesn't sound like a team.
I would like to have some words with this colleague, first off. But I think something we talk about a lot here is that we are not responsible for the thoughts of our coworkers or the people around us. So first off, if they happily want to work 80 hours, that's on them. And you are not responsible for them feeling like they need to or want to do that. And if it's starting to cause problems, I think it's a culture issue. Again, we've talked about that on the podcast before. We need to create a culture where we don't reward overwork or celebrate it. And I would argue that your company needs to create a culture where we discourage the happily over 40 hours badge of honor and create a supportive environment where instead of, ringing that bell for the people who worked over the weekend or pulled an all-nighter to get something done, we instead turn around and say, where did we fail that you felt you needed to do that? Where, what resources do we need to get you in the future? What processes do we need to put in place so that you don't feel like you need to do that? So that's my initial thoughts on this, is that we need to reframe that conversation completely at a corporate culture level.
Yeah, and I would also point out that you don't know what's going on for that person either, because I had an employee one time who was always working like 70 hours a week, and to the point where he was, not fully alert and falling asleep in meetings and things like that. And so I was really working with him like, you don't have to work this much. Why? We have support here. Who can you hand things off to? And it turned out that he didn't want to go home. He was happier at the office. And so here I am trying to encourage him to not work that much. And it really made no difference what I was doing because that was his escape.
As someone who has used work to hide from the rest of my life, I get that. I get that. So yeah, it again comes back to we are not responsible for those people who are setting their own boundaries of 80 hours a week is totally fine.
Yeah, and I think the tricky thing comes in, right, if they're holding a grudge against you in some way for you having boundaries and them not, that can create an uncomfortable work environment. I don't know that I have any suggestions as to what to do about that, but I echo what you're saying, right? Like if they are holding a grudge against you for having boundaries, that says a lot more about them and how they're feeling than it does about you and what you're doing. And it takes one of us to change the perception that working 80 hours a week is a good thing. And it may not happen overnight, but you're the leader, right, in that scenario.
Yeah, and if it's becoming an issue with your team dynamics, again, I feel like that requires some sort of escalation where you either talk to your manager or manager, department head sits down with your department, with your team and talks about, what is acceptable, what's expected of everybody, what is not expected of everybody, to kind of set that tone so that there is no disgruntled toxicity, I guess, between those that want to work more and feel as if their counterparts are not working enough.
Yeah, I think I've talked about this, but I had somebody I was talking to one time who was burned out. And so she was just like, enough. I can't answer emails after night anymore. I'm not going to work on the weekends. And all it took was her doing that. And I would have preferred that she did it from a place of freedom instead of fear, right? But her colleagues started to notice, and they were like, well, how come you can do this and we can't? And then they started adjusting, and then the leadership in the office started adjusting. And this one person had a huge domino effect on the culture in that company by saying enough.
That is amazing. And the best case scenario. I don't want to put burden on the individual.
Right.
Again, I agree. If that had come from like a place of freedom, I would have been like, heck yeah, I'm still heck yeah for that person for setting their boundaries. But I think it's first and foremost a systemic issue that needs to happen at a structural level. And then for the individual, like Jeff said, you set your boundaries and you're not responsible for how other people feel about those boundaries.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it is a firm structure issue, right? Because firms are built off the fact that if I work extra, they don't pay me for that effort. and they benefit by being able to charge the client for that effort that I put in that they didn't pay me for. So that is a way firms in our industry are set up to take advantage of that. And, I think that's changing a little bit, but it still exists a lot. And projects are a lot more successful financially if people work unpaid time versus paid time on them.
Right.
So, I think as leaders too, we have to be careful. I can't remember who I was talking to, but somebody, it was somebody who's in a marketing leadership role. And she's like, no, I protect my staff. I don't want them working extra. I will do anything to prevent that they, don't have to put in this extra effort. And yet here she is working every weekend, working a lot of extra hours. And it's like, I appreciate that you're looking out for them, but they are also paying attention to what you're doing. And they're saying, if I want her job, this is what's required. And so we talked a lot about how can you be the leader in that instance and be like, okay, guys, we're just not doing this anymore. And I'm going to start, and then you guys can follow.
Absolutely. We see that a lot when we do our burnout seminars. I feel like we've gotten that question a couple of times from managers who are like, I want to protect my team, so I take it on, or I take on the ugly assignments, or I work the extra. So absolutely, managers take note. The tone you set with both your subordinates and leadership above you is going to could change the dynamics of your work week, of your burden, of your workload.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just like kids, right? That's what I told her. I'm like, it's just like kids. They're watching what we do, not what we say. They're not listening to what we say at all. They're watching what we do, and that's what they're going to do. So it doesn't really matter what you're saying. It's more what you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah. Actions speak louder than words.
Yep. Well, did we answer their question?
I hope so. And I hope that their colleague works through whatever they need to work through, because that was a really nasty comment. And I wish all of the support to this person, because I would not have handled that situation very well in person. So, friendly reminder to our listeners, if you have a burning question, you can email it to us at burnoutbanter@gmail.com. Please remember to like or subscribe to the podcast on Amazon, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to make sure you never miss an episode. We are so excited to be wrapping up season 1 of Burnout Banter. Thank you to everyone who has tuned in with us for the last 10 months. We hope you've all enjoyed this season and would love to hear what your favorite episode was. So that we don't burn out ourselves any further, we are taking a break for the holiday season, and we'll be back with a new episode in January. Our inbox is always open, though. You can email that Gmail, send us your questions, let us know what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and we're here for you.
And we are still here to support you, even though we won't be doing a new episode until January. So if anybody needs support, reach out as you go through the next couple of months. So we'll see you in the new year.